Hello, Wastelanders, Vlad here, and today I want to show you how to build a flying Santa sleigh for your Fallout 76 camp. Let's get things going. All right, so we need to start our build by putting together our reindeer stand-ins, and that's going to be this Giddy Up Buttercup ride that I have here. And I've already staged this, so I have a wall with a roof. I have a pressure plate with a mannequin standing on top of it, and I have our camp unit. And we're going to start things off by placing this ride on top of the roof to where the front and back leg are just hanging over the edge of the roof. We'll take a quick look at that so you can see just how they're barely hanging over the edge of the roof. And then we're going to grab our colored string lights and we're going to put them going from one of those legs to the other. And they should be attached to the ride. And then we're going to flip it around and we're going to get things lined up to where they're not at an angle, those are at an angle. So we'll make an adjustment. Having it straight means that the lights will attach in a straight line as well, as long as you get that right. So just make a quick adjustment, and we're going to place the same set of lights on the other side from front to back leg as we did with the front of the other side. And then we need to bring these lights up. We don't want them on the bottom. So we're going to accomplish that by using the camp unit. So we're going to grab our camp unit. And we're going to grab our ride with the lights attached to the bottom of the legs. We're going to flip it to where the head is facing us, and then we're going to place the ride on the camp unit. And that's going to slowly, by placing it multiple times, bring these lights up towards the top of the ride. And I want to go to where they are just above the little legs that are supporting this ride. So this is where they're at the legs. I'm going to drop it one more time so they are above that line. Reason being is because we're going to do some merging here in a second, so I need these to move down and be where I want them to be. So we need some way to connect our reindeer stand-ins together with some reins. So I'm going to use the conduits to do that. And I'm going to balance a conduit on the front nose of this horse ride. And these conduits have a front and a back. The one side has a little light on it for when the power is connected. The other doesn't have anything at all. I actually want to hide the part with the light. So I'm going to face that towards the center of the body of the ride. But we're just going to balance it on the nose of the horse. And then we're going to do the same thing in the back, but we're going to balance it on the tail instead of the nose. I just kind of move it forward until it turns green. Now that those are in place, we're going to grab the ride and we're going to merge these down into it by placing the ride on top of our pressure plate that our mannequin is very nicely holding down for us. And you'll see that it'll slowly start to merge each time that we place it onto that pressure plate. With it depressed. And we're going to go until that front conduit is kind of center on the nose of the horse. So it looks kind of like a little conduit bridle for the front end of the horse ride. This is what you should have here, but you're going to have to repeat this 8 times for all of the reindeer. So go ahead and do this. Rinse and repeat. So next we need a sleigh, and we're going to use this Corvega trailer as the back end of the sleigh. Now you could use other items that are available to us, but I like the profile of this one. It's a little bit smaller, slimmer than maybe the truck bed that we have, or using some other type of item. So I'm going to use it as the back end of our sleigh, and I've started to stage the front end. What I've got is a rug here, one of those longer rectangle rugs, and I've put some of these Red Rocket bar stool set, or not bar stools, but the bar pieces themselves onto the rug and kind of made this U shape using the conduits, with the middle piece being 2 bar pieces wide with the little corner pieces, and then 2 bar pieces long going the opposite direction. But everything should pick up when you grab that rug and put it in the air. Now our sleigh needs some power going through it, so we're actually going to put some generators up in the front so that they aren't just kind of sticking out. We don't want to be able to see them from the bottom, that sort of thing. So I'm going to destroy those front two pieces of bar, and I'm going to grab some of these Vault-Tec prototype generators and put them towards the front, right up against that wall. And I'm going to turn them to where the power side of them is on the inside of our rug so that we don't run into any issues placing any wires because they are intersecting with those bar pieces later on. But we can wedge two of those towards the front of the U shape. And then once they are in place, we want to grab some conduit. And I mean the piped conduit. I want one of these junction pieces that just has a power connector point and one piece of pipe sticking out from them. I'm going to put those just past the center of these generators with the pipe facing towards our broken bar pieces. And we're going to do that on both of the generators. And then we're going to go around to the front and we're going to connect the same type of piece going through those broken bar pieces. And then we're going to check that they are coming out well in front of these bar pieces so that we can connect wire to it without having any issues with it intersecting or telling us that the wire is invalid, that sort of thing. I'm going to go ahead and wire up those conduits, and then I'm going to repair our broken bar pieces. Let's get this repaired. Now that those are repaired, we want to grab something for us or Santa to sit in. And I've got this little cabinet with a bench balanced on top of it. And I actually switch out this bench for a different one later in the build because this one makes you sit in the center of it. And I want to have like a Santa statue on top. So I wanted it to where you can sit on either side of the bench. So I actually switched this out with one of the church pews later on. But go ahead and just make sure you can sit in this once you put it down. You don't want to get towards the end thinking you can sit in your sleigh and then find out you can't and you got to tear things apart to get it fixed. And then we're going to use this little decorative room divider as a backer for the structure that we just created. I'm going to get it lined up with the back of these bar pieces on the back end of this rug that's still sticking out by itself. Once we're happy with the alignment, this is what we should have for our front end of what is going to be our sleigh. Now we need to put together our pieces of sleigh. So we grabbed our Corvega trailer, and you'll notice that if I try and put down this rug on top of this trailer, it will not let me. Even if I just move it onto the tongue and were to place it standing there by itself, it won't let me. So we're going to trick the game, and we're going to grab ourselves a piece of conduit, and we're going to put it on the edge of a elevated floor tile. And then we're going to grab our rug and we're going to balance it on top of the conduit. We're going to slowly move it back from the edge of our foundation here that is elevated until it turns green and we can place it. You're going to roughly end up in the center of the rug with that conduit. And the reason we elevated this is so that we can pick it up, but we're going to check the alignment before we try and move it anywhere else. We want to make sure it's centered, that it isn't diagonal or anything like that. Because we want to be able to just pick it up and kind of move it over to the trailer and balance it on the trailer because it will allow you to balance this piece of conduit on the trailer. I couldn't see what I was doing there, so let's try this again. I'm going to go underneath and grab that piece of conduit. That's, again, why we elevated that foundation. I'm going to balance it here on the back end of the trailer. And we're going to check the alignment. Make sure that it is straight with your trailer. And once you're happy with the alignment, we're going to then pick up the trailer and we're going to place it one wheel on our pressure plate. Again, that is depressed by the mannequin. And we're just going to rinse and repeat, pick it up and do it until we slowly merge the front end of our sleigh that we built with the bar set into the Corvega trailer, which is going to be the back end of the sleigh. And as you get closer to the bed level of the Corvega trailer, or whatever you decided to make into your sleigh if you're doing this with a similar item, slow down as you get towards that level and just double check, because if you merge this down too far, you may have to pull things apart and try again, and it's just not worth the extra headache. So take it slow once you get close to the area where you want your merge to stop, and just check it every once in a while and make sure you're not going too far, because again, we don't want to have to redo that. But once you're happy with the merge and things are where you want them, then it'll be time to decorate your sleigh. So I have gone ahead and just quickly decorated everything. I have used a bunch of plushies, some presents, some alcohol, and then I've also added some lights to the front end and to the back end of our sleigh. So I want to make sure that those are working before we move forward. So I'm going to grab some power conduits. I'm actually going to attach them to the inner side of these bar pieces. I'm going to actually use this red rocket one because it's a little lower profile and I won't have as much trouble getting it to place inside of here. But we're just going to put one to the front here and one on the side, and then we're going to get our wires connected, and then we're going to make sure that the lights are working before we move on. So we need to find this one some power. There we go. That one turned into green. Now that those are connected, let's do a walkthrough. So my lights on the back are working, both in the bed and on the back tail lights. And then the ones on our front are also working. So now that we've got that ready to go and decorated, I'm actually going to do some extra merging. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to place it 4 times onto our pressure plate, 4 times. And that's going to merge things a little bit further past where they currently were. And that's because it's going to get moved up in the next step of putting together the entire sleigh. I'm going to do the same thing for each one of the reindeer, except for instead of dropping it 4 times, I'm going to drop it 2 times on our pressure plate with the mannequin standing on top. And we're going to do that for all 8 of our reindeer stand-ins for the horses. Now we need a platform to put together our sleigh on. So I put down these 4 foundations. They're going along this house, and that's the way I want my Santa sleigh to be facing. And I'm going to move 2 of these foundations slightly lower than the other ones, moving them about the thickness of a roof panel below the other ones. And that's because it's going to give our sleigh some shape so that all of our reindeer/horses are not exactly at the same height, and that's going to give a little bit of shape to our flying Santa sleigh and reindeer that we wouldn't get if we just put them in a straight line. So I'm just going to use these roofs as a platform to build on and to store the items, all of those items that we put together for our sleigh. Now I moved my camp unit on top of these roofs. That's because we're going to use it to float our reindeer and our sleigh. So I have gone ahead and put down the camp unit where I think it should go. I'm using this little line of the roof to make sure that I consistently place it in the same place to things to be lined up straight against each other. But I want to place this first one to where its back feet are just at the roof line where those 2 are at different heights. And then I like to put down my ride and get the spacing the way I think it should be, and then just move it over to the side and then put the camp unit down so that I can then place it on top and then just slide it over. But that way I know that I have my spacing correct between the 2 rides, and then I can get them lined up as I place them on the camp unit. I'm going to move to the back, and now these back ones are at a different roof height. That's as intended, like I mentioned. And I'm going to make a quick note again that make sure that you did the extra merge for both the reindeer stand-ins, these horses, and for your Santa sleigh before you start placing them down on this camp unit on the roofs, because when you place them on the camp unit, everything's going to merge upward as that ride or sleigh jumps down. So you don't want to have things end up floating because you didn't do that extra merge. When you place them on the camp unit, it corrects that and jumps them back up where they should be. So let's go ahead and build out our second line of these rides. And again, I'm going to choose a vein of this roofing to use as my alignment spot for this. And I want again, the back legs for this first one we're placing to line up with where these two roofs are at differing heights. I'm going to move this forward, and now I can use that first line as a guide to where I want to place my camp unit for putting the rides. I don't necessarily need to pay as much of attention to the spacing ahead of time because the can put down the camp unit to where it's slightly forward of the other line and be happy. So we got those first two in place. On the second line, do some alignment here, and we're going to get these last two in place so we can move on to placing our sleigh, and then we'll be almost home free. Adjust this a little bit, too far backwards. And just be patient as you do this. It does take a little bit of time. I think I put this part of the build together in like 12 minutes or so, but that's because I had a little bit of practice. It may take you a little bit longer than this. Be careful when you're picking up the horse rides as well, that you're not grabbing just the lights or just a piece of conduit, those sort of things, to where you could accidentally break the unit that you made, and you may have to rebuild it. But once you have them all in place, just double check, make sure you're happy with their alignment and so on. And you can move on to placing the sleigh. Before we do that, I'm just going to get rid of the conduit on the front two rides because I didn't like the way they looked on the very front. So we're going to align our trailer behind our horses, and we're going to pay attention to where this back tire lands when we get that alignment the way we want. I'm going to slide over my trailer a little bit and then slide my camp unit into the place. So we're going to try and get this tire on here. We may have to use the controls to manually pick that up so it'll drop on top of the camp unit. And after a little bit of fuss, this one decided it was ready to go. I'm going to place that on top of the camp unit, and we're going to double check that everything is centered and aligned the way we want it. And yes, it is. So we're going to go ahead and attach these wires to the front conduits of our sleigh, to the tail conduits of the horses, and then we're going to do the nose conduit to the tail conduit of the ones in front of them until we've gone through all of the horse rides. And then we have the entire sleigh put together as far as its structure. We can now remove all of our scaffolding here and leave the sleigh floating on its own. So we'll jump through all of this scaffolding removal fairly quickly here. Now you'll notice that the lights on the two front sets of the rides aren't lighting up, and that's because they're too far away from our sleigh. And the good thing about these lights is they are an area powered item instead of a direct powered item. So we can actually place a generator and its connector to something physical in the camp close by and still power them without having to run a wire directly to them. So even if I put down my generator down there, it'll still power the lights. But here we are. I added some extra decorations to it and jazzed things up. This is our final result, one flying Santa sleigh. I'm really happy with the way this looks. It looks okay in the daylight, but it really shines at night. And I'm really happy with the way this turned out. A lot of work goes into it, but really worth it in the end. Really cool place to do some photo shoots once you get everything put together. Now, the entire time I was building this, I kept hearing a cat. And I looked outside. I thought it was out on the patio. Somebody's cat got out. No, it was this little thing sitting in the window of the house where I was building. And it's just there all day, hanging out with me. I'm going to do it for today's build, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. It took a good while to put together. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest content from Vladministrator Gaming. And until next time, I'll see you in the Wasteland.